that sense of self-worth propelled him to walk in leadership where he was able to do a revolutionary movement.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at his counterpart, on the other hand, where you have Dr. Martin Luther King, who definitely was formally trained, who did receive collegiate experience, still had the same aspirations to do something revolutionary as far as being a leader of the civil rights movement. But it wasn't wrapped in the formal education. It was wrapped in his sense of understanding his true identity, his true purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And so oftentimes we use identity, we use education sometimes to have, there's things called interracism. And it's when people within the same community, they are racist against each other. So dark skin versus light skin, right? But then you have intersocialism. And when you have intersocialism, is when societies are separated based off of something significant like education. So I'm above you because I'm more educated, or I'm beneath you because I'm less educated.
Oh, wow.
And it really has nothing to do with the true identity and core of that person. It is supposed to support, it's supposed to be a complement of this person to get them to that mission and that purpose. Not the dictatorship of how glorious you are or how insignificant you are because you don't have this one thing attained called formal education.
So then how does that spill over? How does that show up in people's work life?
Yeah, so it's really interesting you say this. As someone who has been formally trained and formally educated, I have spent time working on two sides of the coin. So my background is in education, and I've worked in educational industries that are led by districts, right? Really the formal training where you're required to be a certified educator in order to have licensure to teach children. I've also worked in private school settings where that is not a requirement, right? You are not required to be certified by the state in order to have a classroom setting in a private school. You are required to have a degree, a bachelor's degree, but you are not required to have a teacher certification. And then I've also worked in nonprofit where you don't have to have anything but a high school diploma in order to work in a nonprofit agency. They just want to collaborate with like-minded individuals who have the same mission to drive the goals of the organization. And I would say I have met amazing, accomplished people in all three of those arenas with degrees and without degrees. And I would say the leaders of those organizations and what stood out and set them apart from other people was because they definitely were very aware and acute of understanding who they were, what their core values are, and how they were going to carry out those core values to support people.
Wow. And that naturally shows up in leadership because, in the education sector, you have to have leadership qualities, because if you're unable to lead yourself, then you're unable to lead children or adults. The more time you spend with a certain level of brain development, right? The more practice you get with that specific level of brain development, the more wise you become in understanding the way the brain develops at that age, right? So if I'm a kindergarten teacher and I've been so for the past 35 years, then I understand brain development at the smallest, the most adolescent place. So when I apply the same skills and the principles that I've learned, I can use my leadership to now identify where adults have those problems, because I understand them at a very menial level, versus the wisdom that comes from a professor who has only worked with people in their adulthood and understanding the adult brain, understanding what information to give them in order for them to get grades better, understanding what methods they can use in their lecture. So grasping the psychology of an adult and the tenure of a professor in that place is very different than the tenure of a kindergarten teacher.
You hit it on the nail, exactly. However, I would say in addition to that, what I've seen is, and I tell people all this, I tell this all the time, before I'm a principal, before I'm a professor, I'm a human.
Yeah.
How are you making a human connection with me to get my brain to engage with you on whatever it is that you're trying to teach me?
Yeah.
Right. And so I have seen where there are people who have, highest degrees. They have masters in education and brain research. They understand brain development. They understand early childhood development, but they are
Mhm.
not making connections with young people. Well,
Yeah.
I've had rookie teachers who understand their worth, and they understand, like, I want to give back, specifically one I'm thinking of. I want to give back to students in the city of Houston because I come from Houston and I understand the struggles and how to navigate through this particular area. And I'm here to give back. So she understood what her purpose. Because she
Mhm.
understood her purpose, she's leading more with that human connection and less with the ability to understand things at a higher collegial level, but her heart is there. And because her heart is there, she's actually tapping into the students and making more of an impact, and was able to get teacher of the year her first year out of the college arena. So how
So,
did this teacher who's been in here for years, who have a
yeah.
master's, not able to get that level of accolades, but someone who just been here for 1 year, who have what? Understood her core values, understood her core
Mm.
purpose, understood her identity, and is leading from that place, and not necessarily with all of the things and knowledge that she learned in the collegial setting.
Naturally, when you give what your spirit wants to give, you
Mm.
receive everything that your spirit needs to receive. To you is number one, what is the likelihood of a teacher who has begun a career in education finding their truest identity and their purpose after they've already begun the work?
Ah, that's a really good question. And that's really what my, shameless plug, that's really what I do in terms of in this role now as an educational consultant. I help educators get back to their true identity. And
Mm.
so my anchor book that I wrote and was published earlier this year, Lead with Truth. Oftentimes people think, what is the truth that you're talking about? I'm talking about the true you. Lead with your true identity. That's really what the book is about. And
Wow.
how I discovered it, I came to this place in this crossroad as a principal where I wanted to quit. I
Wow.
wanted to throw in the towel, not on kids, but I was overwhelmed. My body was feeling it. My
Mhm.
mind was feeling the trauma. My emotional compass was out of whack. And I was raising my daughter who was a senior at the time, that I wanted to throw in the towel. And so I took time off, and, I started going to therapy. And in those therapeutic sessions, my therapist, who I adore to this day, told me
Mhm.
that she was going to give me one writing prompt per week, and I was going to journal off of that writing prompt.
Mm.
And I would come back every week and read to her my thoughts of what I was experiencing, how I was feeling in this lead role as a school principal. And
Mm.
after 5 weeks, she said, this is so good. This could be a book.
Oh,
And so I just continued journaling, and I looked up with 40,000 words later, and I was ready to publish with one of the major publishing companies in the nation.
come
It
on.
was through the therapy that I was able to get back to myself. Like, oh, I really like to cook. Oh, I do like to get up early. And oh, okay, I really am someone who is fashionable. And if I have time, I like to, do my makeup and put things together. I had lost all of that because I was so caught up in the career, in the title, in the position, in the leadership, that I lost a sense of self. So the people I was leading, they weren't getting my authentic self. They were getting a copycat of who I thought I was supposed to be for them. Now in this new revamped me, I am helping. I know my purpose. I know my calling. I know what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to give back to educators, give back to principals, so they don't find themselves in the area that I was in. So let's now start identifying your core values. Let's start
Mhm.
identifying, creating a wellness philosophy that you are being intentional, that when it's time to break on Thanksgiving, that's not spring cleaning, that's not fall cleaning. You are really resting the body, resting the mind,
Mm.
laughing, right? You're doing these things that are the core of your being, so that when you come back and you're leading schools or you're leading children, you're doing it from your most authentic and genuine self.
Qiana, I love that because it's almost as if you had to find your identity, but only after you had given them an image, right? Like
Mm.
you had to portray an image because that was what they needed. Well, at least that's what you thought that they needed, until you found your identity, and then you said, you know what, I have to now change this image completely, because I got to show them who I really am. Did you start noticing a change in how people received you, and how they sought your direction after you made this identity change?
Not only did I see a change, because it's one thing to observe a change, but I have numbers. The school that I
Oh.
was working for, historically, they had a lot of teacher turnover. Every year, we're trying to fill in vacancies and we're trying to hire teachers in the summertime. After that year transformation for me, we retained 98% of our staff. But in
Mhm.
terms of people wanting to be there, people wanted to be there. Why? Because they were being led by an authentic leader.
You know, I think people underestimate the quality of finding quality in yourself.
Mm,
I think
mhm.
I think that they really underestimate that, because they were based off of like word of mouth, like based off of referral. If I met somebody who knew my quality, then they spread the word about my quality back in the day. It was all based on person to person, peer to peer reviews. But now it's such a rarity to meet somebody who still can create peer-to-peer reviews that transcend all the work that they're putting in.
Mm, mm,
Right?
mm.
Because now not only am I putting in the work, but I've got other people that know me, that can vouch for me and say, hey, this person really is a person of integrity. They have moral compass. They have great character traits. Like, this is a person that I value. And not only do I value them, but I'm willing to allow them to lead me. And I want to continue to work for them.
Precisely. In order to get to my doctorate degree, everyone knows you do a dissertation, and my dissertation was on conversational leadership. And so what I did was I wanted to study the leadership efforts of exemplary leaders. Like, what are you saying to people that keep them in your company? And
Mm.
so I followed and shadowed 12 exemplary leaders in the city of Los Angeles. And what I gathered was that these leaders, they lead excellently in four eyes. They're great intimate leaders. And when you think
Mhm.
of intimacy, we always think of romantic intimacy, but they were intimate in terms of like being authentic enough to share stories with their staff. Stories
Mm.
of failure, stories of triumph, stories of I didn't know this, stories of humor, right? They connected intimately with their staff through storytelling. They were
Mhm.
really intentional,
Mhm.
right? So when you come in my office or when I'm speaking with you, I'm stopping everything I'm doing. I'm not scrolling. I'm not looking on social media. I'm not multitasking. I'm intentionally giving you all of my being because I value you and what you have to
Yeah.
say to me. The third one is that they were very interactive in conversation. So it wasn't them just telling people what to do. They allowed people to give insight as well. And they actually use the insight. People would see it show up like, oh, I said we should do this in the office. And look, they did that in the office. So now there's an interactive exchange where the words that come out of my mouth are just as important as the words that I'm supposed to receive from your mouth. And then the last thing, they were inclusive, right? So if they were at a school, they included the cafeteria lady, as well as a parent, as well as a crossing guard person, as well as teachers, as well as everyone was included in the
Mhm.
decisions that was being made for the organization. And so I really, did my dissertation on that framework of conversational leadership. And I even show up in my own coaching sessions when I'm coaching leaders, right? And I'm saying, like, let's do a conversational survey. Let's ask your employees, or let's ask the people who are following you, how do they perceive your conversation? Because you may think you're a great conversational leader, but you really may need have some high areas of improvement. And so again, when you are safe in your skin, and that's what I like to call it, when you're confident,
Mhm.
I'm safe in my skin. When I'm safe in my skin, I can have these conversations with you that don't rile me up emotionally. They don't trigger anger or frustration. We can even disagree, but we can do it all in a place where there's a level of respect, dignity, and integrity. And I think when you have a leader who has that leadership IQ, then yes, you are more likely to follow them until the wheels fall off.
I love that. So what tips do you have for people who are in education that are seeking a true understanding of their purpose and their identity?
I think, I always say, let the truth be your companion. And when I say let the truth be your companion is like, and I know this is, very, very, very unorthodox to say, but if your
Mm-hmm.
truth is that you are racist, that's your truth. Don't
Yeah.
hide it.
Yes.
And when I mean don't hide it, I mean, let's look at the barriers that prohibit you from connecting with another person, and then let's deal with that.
Yes.
Versus being a bigot who is saying, I'm not racist, I love these kids, but it's not showing up in how you treat them. So we're
Mm-hmm.
not letting truth really get to the heart of the matter. We're not getting to the symptom, to the root cause of why you're disconnecting with these young men,
Wow.
why you're disconnected with these particular demographic of children. So I would say, like, first embrace who you really are, right? We
Mm-hmm.
are, who we become, and our beliefs, they're really developed by 4 levels, right? Our beliefs are developed by our environment,
Mm-hmm.
repetitious information, credible people, and our experiences. So if you had a negative experience with this particular type of demographic of people, then that is your truth, that you really are uncomfortable when you're around those group of people. So what can we do to get you to a place where you can interact with them in a comfortable place? How can we get you back to being safe in your skin? And I think oftentimes we silence people from the real truth. And so what they do is they mask it. But we all know what happens when you put on a mask or when you put on makeup, right? It gets sweaty, it start running off, and we start what? Really getting to see your real skin. We get to really see who you really are.
Yeah.
But it's almost kind of too late. And so one of the biggest tips that I have for people is really embrace who you are. I keep in mind that most educators begin their career at age 23, 24. And I don't know about you, Jazz, but I didn't really know who I was at 24.
Hello.
Right. And so if you have been now teaching in a game and you at 32, you really didn't have an opportunity to really iron out who you really are. So go back and revisit your own core values so then we can begin to look at your zone of genius to strengthen who you are in the classroom, but then also look at your deficits so we can get you the proper training so that you can then be best to children.
Do you think that that's something that because I know that that can be game changing if there was some sort of age barrier, but then it would look like ageism, obviously.
Correct.
But if there was some sort of extra, maybe some extra professional development that would be somewhat required, if the principal's noticing, hey, like this teacher is having identity issues, I'm going to require that they go attend this blank or attend this or read this book or, take this amount of time off in order to go cater to their mental wellness and their emotional wellness and their spiritual wellness, because I need the children that come out of her classroom, his or her classroom, to be equipped and not feel damaged because of something that she may have been imploring in the classroom, something that she probably can't even control because she didn't know that it was within her.
You know, you would have thought I paid you to do a live promotion. That is why we have started our educators wellness retreats, right? And so every summer we host 2 retreats at our 10-acre farm in Sacramento, California, where we invite educators. We do 2 sessions of 50, so we support at least 100 educators a year. And during that 3 days, we are one of our taglines is that 3 days of wellness retreat for one educator can save 3 generations of children. Right?
Wow.
Just 3 days could save 3 generations. And in those
Wow.
3 days, we are having conversations with them that, we're doing yoga, we're doing massages, we're having wine and sipping pain, and we're doing all the fun things and the leisure things. But then we also get to some like really good conversations to really ask them about their core values, their identity, their beliefs, what happened to them as a child. Like we forget things happen to them as a child. They're bringing that in the classroom to your children. What happened with their family? How did divorce impact them? Right? So we really get to the heart of providing them with therapy because oftentimes, yeah, they did the practice of graduating, going to school, passing the certification exams, getting in the classroom. But have they dealt with their past? Have they dealt with their issues? They have not. Many of the times we're finding out they have not. And so we
Mm.
give them that opportunity to really do an emotional cleansing as well. That's also a part of our wellness retreats. And so we're in the process of opening up a new location in Houston, Texas. So we're excited that this summer we'll be able to do 100 educators in Houston and 100 educators in the state of California, really offering them this free space and safe space to get back to being safe in their own skin.
You know what, Qiana, you have been a blessing. I can't even just say to me, because your line of work literally makes you a blessing to hundreds at a time, right? Hundreds a year. And so, I hope and pray for your business that the people who attend these retreats are able to now take whatever value that you've given them and whatever value that you've allowed them to discover, to now pass the blessings on to the thousands.
Yeah.
The thousands that need the attention, the awareness, the management of self. Yeah. What is one of the best practices that you think people should adopt in order to start their journey of learning their purpose and learning their identity in education?
That's a really good question. I think sometimes, I think there is a really great freedom when you are able to freely journal. But I also think that there is benefits to journaling with purpose. And so one of the things that we do at our retreat is we start them off with this activity called What's on Your Plate. We pass out a paper plate to everyone, and we give them opportunities to really put themselves in the middle. And then they kind of create a spider web of all the things that's really heavy in their life, burdens, responsibilities, things that cause them to stay up at night, things that really are impacting their ability to get back to their core selves, right? And so what we find is once they have identified those things, now throughout our time, we really have them journal on how they're going to impact that from being a burden on their life. How do you unpack it? Journal about the unpacking process. So it's journaling with a purpose. So an example I would give, to be transparent, I was a single mom, raising my daughter. I was a school principal. I had her involved in all these things. And so one of my burdens, or responsibilities rather, was being able to run a school and then get her to all the practices and all the events and all the things. And so when I began to journal and unpack, how did this become such a heavy responsibility? Why is this a burden? I was able to discover that I was overcompensating for the fact that her father wasn't in her life.
Oh.
So through the overcompensation, I have her in volleyball and dance and this. So I had to get back to like this. What does she even want to do? The core of all she wanted to do was play basketball. Then we was able to stop theater. We was able to stop this. We were able to stop all these things that she was doing to please mommy. And I was only having her do because I was trying to fill in the seat of being her father. That lightens my load, right? That's one thing. So if you do that times all the other things that you have written down on your plate, you walk away from that retreat like, oh, my load is lessened because I'm going to put these things into practice to lighten the load.
This is helpful for anyone who is dealing with other individuals, other souls, other dependents, other people in general. Moms, fathers, CEOs, janitors. It covers the full scope of humanism.
Yep, you're right. And we have been so fortunate for people like you and others who have seen how this support transcends beyond the educational industry. We have been given the honor to provide training to the executives for the Sacramento Kings and the NBA. We've been working with people at Honda dealerships who are at the executive level because people have realized, hey, this training, while it has been geared towards educators, it can transcend to other industries and it can help executives or members at any level. At the end of the day, like I just want to help people. Like I
That's
really
it.
have been able to figure out that I really just want to help people be good to other people.
Thank you so much, Qiana O'Leary of Mentee. Yes.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been lovely. I love talking.